So we're gonna let student support services take over here. So I think I see them all on here. So guys, you guys can get started, and then when you want to go to questions, I'll help you with your chat and throw some questions your way.
All right, sounds good. Well, hello everyone. Excited to be here. We'll start off by introducing ourselves, and once you've had a chance to find out who the faces are that you're speaking with, we'll dive into kind of what each of our areas offer, and then we'll open it up for some questions. So my name is Megan Peterson. I am the Dean of Equity and Multicultural Affairs. I oversee our multicultural affairs, our Title IX compliance, our student rights and responsibilities process, and our disability support services. I've been with the college for a little over 10 years now, working in various aspects of student affairs the whole time, and I'm really excited to spend some time with you today.
I'll go next. I'm Megan Ream. I'm director of our Learning Center. The Learning Center is where we have a lot of tutoring services. I think I've seen some of you in our Learning Center for other enrollment events. So you've seen what it looks like. We have tutors in math and writing, as well as accounting and anatomy. So if you are taking any of those classes, and all of you will take some of those classes, you can get some help from our student services team members. We are doing online work as well, because obviously people are meeting online. So you can get help whether you're actually on ground in the Learning Center or if you're just meeting with a tutor online. And that's me.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin Copas. I am the Director of Student Advising. When we're normally on campus, we're over in Bollinger, if you know which building that is. So if you go over the bridge, we're the building on the left, up on the top floor, close to Career Services, so you can visit them while you're at it too. So in advising, we're the primary advisors for students who are looking to major in business, accounting, criminal justice, IT, and then a couple of related majors. Students who are in legal studies, paralegal, any of our healthcare programs, communications. Those are programs where you also have a faculty advisor to support you, but our office still works closely with any student who wants help. So we do a lot of different things to support our students throughout the term. We do a lot of check-ins just to see how things are going, make sure you're aware of important dates like midterms and the end of the term, and that you know that we're here to cheer you on and encourage you. We do some check-ins just related to course registration, and we're here to support you through that process as well. But it just kind of depends on the student. We're always here to be the first go-to person if you're not sure who to talk to about something. We know a little bit about a lot of things, and if we get to a point that we're not the best person to help you out, we will get you pointed in the right direction.
I guess I'm last. Hey everybody, my name is Tom Palmier. I am the Director of Counseling Services for the college. As I'm looking through the roster of names, some of you all sound familiar because I've seen you posting on the CPC app as you've been accepted, so congratulations to all of you. In addition to overseeing the mental health and substance use counseling piece of the college, I also work with our student alert team, which you'll learn more of that as we get closer to you starting on campus. That's the network of professionals, so Megan, both Megans really, and Caitlin included in that when your faculty or staff, when you share concerns with them, if they're not the folk that are going to be able to best support you, they kind of send you up the chain to us. So by coming to Central Penn, you have all signed up to have the problem of too many people caring about you. In addition to that, I am also the club advisor for Equal Nights, which is our LGBT advocacy group on campus. So we'll be represented at the club fair when you all get started. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
So to kind of talk a little bit more about the services that we offer in our different areas that might kind of spark ideas for you, things that you have questions about. I'll start with our multicultural affairs. So we have a diversity center that is on campus, which is open 24/7 for students. to come and access. We have some reading material in there. We've got a little coffee bar in there for students. It's right across from one of the 24-hour computer labs. So I know a lot of students like to pop in and grab coffee if they're working on papers late. But it's also a place where we run a lot of multicultural programming. So if that's something that interests you, we also have a student multicultural advisory board that helps plan those programs and events. We do different cultural celebrations. We take trips locally. We do all sorts of things in multicultural affairs. I also mentioned disability support services. So I work with students who may need accommodations as a result of any different type of disability. We know that disabilities can be really wide-ranging. They could be physical disabilities such as mobility, speech, hearing disabilities. They could also be psychological. It could be depression, anxiety, PTSD related, or it could be learning disabilities. So disability support services works with students to put accommodation plans in place, regardless of what type of disability they might have, to make sure that they have an equitable, opportunities to succeed and be supported. A couple of key things to know about that is disability support services at a collegiate level works a bit differently than disability support services would in a high school environment. In what you may be used to in high school, if you're a student that has maybe a 504 plan or an IEP, those plans are kind of school initiated, and then the school makes sure that every teacher is aware of what the plan is. At the college level, it's a little bit different. It has to be student initiated. So if you have an IEP or a 504 plan, please make sure that you're reaching out and letting us know so that we can work on getting an accommodation letter in place for you. I typically start working on getting accommodation letters in place for students about a month out from when they start, so that they have those letters in place before they actually start classes. And the other important thing to know is that disability support services can't automatically share accommodation letters with faculty unless we have student permission. So once you get that letter in place, if you want that letter to be kind of blasted out to all of your faculty, make sure that you're giving the office permission to do so. Otherwise, it doesn't get automatically shared. So those are kind of some key differences to know when you're coming from a high school environment to a college environment, just to make sure that you're taking full advantage of whatever accommodations you may qualify for. So that's kind of some information about the multicultural affairs and disability support services aspects. I'll turn it over to anybody else who wants to talk a little bit more in depth about the services that they offer, and then of course, happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
So we just got a question in the chat box asking, is tutoring free? Yes, all tutoring services are free and provided by the college with your tuition. So you can arrange to meet with somebody as many times as you need to. We'll help you decide how to use the tutoring services best to your advantage, and even help you become more confident in learning to work without them. But our goal is to help you every way we can, and it's all free to you.
And the same is true of counseling services as well. So me and my staff offer free mental health counseling, and it could really be centered around whatever you deem is important. Counseling is 100% free, so we don't worry if you have insurance or if you don't. There's no co-pays. So if any of you all are currently in any type of treatment, as you kind of get ready to start at Central Penn, I recommend that students who are in treatment, talk with your provider about, hey, I'm going to be starting college. Sometimes providers reach out to me, and so that way, by the time you come to campus, we already have you kind of on the books for services. So that's a big consideration, because sometimes people could be paying for counseling and you might be paying $20, $30, $40 a session as a copay, but when you start at Central Penn, all of that becomes free.
Any accommodations that a student may qualify for are free of charge to the student as well, whether that be any form of assistive technology or whatnot. If it's not something that the student already has in their possession, disability support services would absorb the cost of whatever we need to make sure that a student is fully accommodated.
You guys probably guessed this, but since I'm the only one who hasn't said it yet, advising is also free, so come visit us as much as you would like. So I can talk a little bit more about some of the things that we do in the Advising Center. So like I said, one of the biggest things that we do is just provide a lot of check-ins and reach out points for all of our students. And even though we're not the primary advisor for every student, because like I said, we have several majors at the college that also work with a faculty advisor, we do provide that outreach to all of our students just because we want to make sure you're staying on the same page. So we check in a lot, especially during the really busy times. You know, we know getting used to the beginning of the term, whether it's your first term or you've been here for a while, can always be just a bit of an adjustment as you're getting used to a whole new set of classes, maybe new faculty that maybe handle things a little differently from professors you've had in the past. So we check in a lot at the beginning of the term. Right now we're right at the middle of the term, so midterms is something as another time that you'll hear from us a lot. And then finals as well, the end of the term. You know, those tend to be the busiest times that can, you know, get a little stressful. So we just want to remind you that we're here for you. So especially the beginning of the term, the middle of the term, and the end of the term. And then throughout the rest of the term, again, we do check in a lot just to let you know what's going on. You know, if there are scholarship opportunities, we want to make sure you're aware of that. Sometimes we might check in just to remind you about some things you've already heard from financial aid about, like financial aid deadlines and things like that, just to kind of reiterate some of those other messages you're getting. And then registration is one of the biggest things we spend a lot of time on. So we're absolutely here to help you through that process. Your first term, you don't need to worry about registration because your classes will be scheduled for you. But after that, you will be responsible for registering for your own classes, but we're here to support you. We can help you figure out what class to take. And sometimes opening up that registration system can be a little intimidating, especially the first time. So we're here to help you navigate that and figure that out so that doesn't need to be a difficult thing. It's just an easy process, and we'll try to make it as easy as we can.
Hey guys, I have some questions popping in. If you don't mind, I'm gonna read them off to you. I know some of you have seen a couple of them. But one is, what documentation do I need to be able to get accommodations?
Yeah, great question. So what we require in order to receive accommodations is the diagnosis of disability and then recommendations from a professional as to what accommodations are needed. Now, if you're a student that has had an IEP or a 504 plan coming up through high school, most likely all of that information is contained in that plan. We can pull out the diagnosis and the recommended accommodations from that. So that's always kind of the best place to start, is if you have an IEP or a 504 plan, to submit that as your documentation, because most likely everything that we need will be in there. IEPs in and of themselves and kind of the form that they're in a high school environment don't translate to college, but we can pull all that information out to create you an approved accommodation letter. So along with that, we also have a disability support services application packet. It's a very short packet. It's a couple forms just kind of letting us know what your needs are and making sure that we clearly explain our confidentiality policy, which goes into why we can't automatically share letters without permission. So it's 3 forms. I think it's only 5 pages long. Just so a short packet, and then along with that documentation is what we use to create the accommodation letters.
Okay. Another question that was asked was, can my parents talk to you without me knowing? So I think this is more so for probably Megan and Tom.
So I'll go on my piece of it. So some of you might live in Pennsylvania, so you already know this, but some of you who might live in other states, the rules are kind of different in your state. So in the state of Pennsylvania, mental health confidentiality starts at age 14. So what that means is that once a person in Pennsylvania becomes 14, anything they say to a counselor or a therapist or a psychiatrist is confidential. So you have to actually sign a release of information for someone like me to speak to a parent. For those of you that live in other states other than Pennsylvania, the age of consent is a little bit different across the board, but in Pennsylvania, it's 14. So what that means is if you start treatment with one of my team, we don't talk to anybody within the college or outside of the college without your signed permission. And on that, what's called a release of information, where you give us permission, you specify what we are allowed to report on and disclose. So all of that is kept confidential unless you sign off and say otherwise.
And in terms of areas outside of counseling services, outside of the mental health realm, it really depends on whether or not you have signed a FERPA allowing the college to talk to your parents. So if you have not signed a FERPA form, then we cannot talk to your parents or guardians or anyone about anything. If you have signed a FERPA, then we would be able to speak with your parents. So it really is dependent about whether or not you've given the college permission to speak with your family.
Okay. Something that we got asked earlier in the day that I think that you guys might be able to better handle was Blackboard Orientation, why that's beneficial for the student. I don't know if Megan or Caitlin might want to take that.
I was thinking Megan might take that, but I'm not sure. Are you?
There she is.
Okay.
Sorry, I have tutoring responsibilities that I am still monitoring, and they're not going well at this very moment. So can you please repeat the question?
You know, I got it, Megan. Don't worry about it. I can answer it just fine. So yeah, Blackboard Orientation is basically a practice course in Blackboard. So for those of you who aren't already familiar with Blackboard, it's Central Penn's learning management system. So that means that all of our online courses are conducted fully through Blackboard. And for our on-ground courses, there's still a lot of information through Blackboard. So every professor is a little bit different with their expectations, but for a lot of our classes, even our on-ground classes, your faculty will expect you to turn in assignments through Blackboard. They might expect you to take tests and quizzes through Blackboard. They might say, hey, I've uploaded a bunch of information that we're gonna go over this week, and I want you to log onto Blackboard and download that or read it there. So Blackboard is a huge part of our education, even with our on-ground courses. And if any of you are considering online courses, you're gonna live and breathe Blackboard. So Blackboard Orientation is just like a practice course to help you get used to how Blackboard courses are laid out. You'll have a chance to just kind of see how the courses are going to be set up, get used to navigating everything, maybe practice doing some basic stuff like submitting an assignment, taking a quiz. So yeah, it's just really helpful to have that comfort level going in and already knowing where things are going to be located, so that way during your first term you can focus on the content rather than having to worry about the technology and navigation side of things.
Okay. Another question, I'm not sure if they're still on here or not. Earlier we had one about service animals, and are they allowed to be on campus, and what kind?
So that's a great question. So for service animals, yes, absolutely. If you have a service animal, which typically would be a dog, although it could also be a miniature horse. There's your fun trivia fact for the day. The only two types of animals that can be service animals are dogs and miniature horses. If you have a diagnosed disability and you have a service dog that is trained to perform a task to aid you, then yes, absolutely that animal can be on campus, basically wherever you are. Support animals, on the other hand, are a little bit different. So if a student has an emotional support animal, which could be really any type of animal, as long as the student has the correct documentation that they need that animal, they can have a support animal on campus, but only in the residence halls. Those animals are not permitted in any of the academic buildings. Can't take that animal to class with you, but they would be permitted in the residence halls. We have one designated animal-friendly housing building, or residence hall. So anybody with an approved support animal would have to keep that animal in the residence hall.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Let me see, does anybody have any other questions so far? So a question that just popped in was, what if I get in trouble on campus? What happens?
That's a great question. I can handle that one. So I oversee our student rights responsibilities, and one component of that is our student conduct process. So if a student were to get in trouble on campus, let's say that They get written up by a resident advisor or one of our public safety members. That write-up then comes to my office for review. I look it over and either say, yes, a policy violation may have happened, or no, one didn't. But if it appears that a policy violation may have taken place, then a student would have a conduct hearing, and that could happen in one of two ways. Most of the time, it's a one-on-one meeting with one of our trained hearing officers, which gives the student a chance to explain their side of the story, talk through what happened, and then that hearing officer would determine if there's any applicable sanctions that might be appropriate for that student. If it's something really big and serious, which I'm sure none of you in this call here will have this issue at all, but if a student were to be involved in a kind of big serious incident, then their case would likely be heard by a judicial hearing board, which would be a panel of several different trained faculty and staff members who would look over the case and determine appropriate sanctions. From there, if there's any follow-up on sanctions, let's say a student got written up for, they were littering a lot on campus and they got assigned a couple hours of community service helping to clean up around campus. The Student Rights and Responsibilities Office would be the one to make sure that the student gets connected with the facilities team to complete those hours, make sure that we mark those hours as complete, and kind of follow up on any of those sanctions.
Can I smoke on campus?
We do have designated smoking areas. You cannot smoke inside any buildings, but there are several designated smoking and vaping areas throughout campus. So any smoking or vaping that anybody wants to do just needs to happen in those designated outdoor areas.
What happens if I fail a class?
So if, hopefully we don't get to that point. We're here to support you beforehand. So please come talk to advising or talk to the Learning Center if you do think you're in danger of not passing a course that you're taking. But obviously things happen. So if you do fail a course one time, you can always retake that course. So if you do fail a course, it does potentially impact your GPA. But as long as you're still in that good academic standing range with your overall GPA, there's nothing wrong with something like that happening one time. And once you retake the class, it'll help you bring your GPA back up. So if you do ever need to retake a class, just keep in mind that's a really great time to seek out some more support services. So if it's a particular subject that you could use a little bit of extra support with, some of the ones that my office most often refers students to the Learning Center for are writing classes, math, accounting. Those are some of the subjects that the Learning Center is especially great with tutoring with, but you can go talk to them about anything, of course. But that's a great time just to seek out some more services. We can help you figure out a plan for how to be successful your second time through.
Thank you. Can you chew gum and have drinks in the classroom?
So I'm actually a faculty member as well as the director of the Learning Center, and faculty members are left a lot of discretion in what they want to see happening in the classroom. I have never known a faculty member to get mad about somebody chewing gum. I have known faculty members who don't like food and drink being in the classroom, and so they may make a request that students not do that, but there is no school-wide policy about it.
Okay. Sorry, I just got blocked on my chat. Give me 1 second here to get back in. How many computer labs are there on campus?
So there is a computer lab in ATEC that is open to students for almost all day. I believe it does close for a few hours overnight. There's a computer lab on the first floor of Bollinger, and that is open 24 hours a day. There's a computer lab in the library that is open the same hours as the library. So unless that computer lab is occasionally reserved for a class, but that's not super frequent. For the most part, that lab is always available. And I'm going to see if anyone is thinking of any computer labs I'm missing.
There are a couple of lab classrooms in ATEC as well that are open, provided that there's not already a class in session there.
And if we're talking about the IT programs, there are 2 labs that have the software that they
Yes.
use. And frequently students will just hang out in the classrooms doing their work during the day.
Mhm.
Okay. Couple more questions just popped in. How many semesters are there in a whole school year?
So we usually use the word term because our terms are shorter than a semester at many semester schools. So our terms are 11 weeks long, and there are 4 terms a year. They run kind of with the seasons. So right now our students are in the spring term, which runs from the 2nd week of April through about the 3rd week of June. And then there's a 2-week break. And our summer term will start the 2nd week of July and the 3rd week of September. And then our fall term will run October to December, and our winter term will run January to March.
How does printing pages work? Do we have to pay for each sheet?
No, so we do not have a cap on printing at this time, which is the case at many other colleges, so you can print what you need to. But in addition to my roles in the advising center, I'm also on the green team, so I will advocate for trying to save the environment and just reduce your printing as much as possible.
Yes, print responsibly.
And we're happy to help you figure out technologies if you want any help figuring out how to highlight documents or save things so that you know how to access them again so that you can avoid printing unless it's something that you really do need to reference a lot.
Okay. What is the dress code for criminal justice?
So for the most part, our programs that have specific dress codes would be like our allied health programs will often have a dress code. In terms of dress code for other programs, it would really be kind of dependent on a course. If a faculty member requires students to dress professionally for a presentation, or then when you get into your internship, what the dress code is for your internship site. So in terms of going to classes, typically unless you're in one of our allied health programs like PTA, OTA, MA, there's not a specific dress code for attending class.
I think Caitlin answered this, but there are actually 4 terms in a year. If I think she already did that one, but just putting that back out there again. And
Yeah.
do
And
any of your departments host events on campus? Oh, sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No, that's okay. No, because I saw that Raven's question had like 3 different parts to it. So I'm going to break down parts of that question. So the first question about, and Lindsay may have gone over some of this. So
You did.
Oh, okay, cool.
With the housing. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you identify as a transgender woman, like we will respect your trans identity as you report it. So we take that very seriously. I see Megan nodding as well. So that's kind of the first piece of that question. And then you would kind of connect with housing about the roommate piece of that, depending on kind of what you would like to have happen in that regard.
I will also say that we do have a preferred name policy to make sure that we are affirming and recognizing students by the name that affirms their identity.
Okay. And so this question popped in, do any of your department host events on campus? And what are they?
Absolutely. So in my areas, the Office of Multicultural Affairs, our Center for Multicultural Affairs, hosts a lot of on-campus events. We host an annual Black History Month luncheon. We host an event called Festival of Nations, which is kind of a big celebration of multiculturalism. We have smaller events throughout the year as well. We do like a St. Patty's Day drop-in event. We have a Holy Festival. We have a Ramadan fasting challenge coming up next week. We do the Multicultural Book Club. We have diversity cupcakes and diversity Sundays where we get to decorate cupcakes or make ice cream sundaes in a way that we can also be learning about multiculturalism. So those are just a handful of the types of events that the Center for Multicultural Affairs runs during the year. Also in terms of Title IX, every year we do Sexual Assault Awareness Week, which is a whole week of programming, bringing awareness around sexual violence. So we do Walk a Mile in Her Shoes is an event that we do. We do film screenings and discussions. We have an event called Know Your Nine, where it's a kind of drop-in event in the Diversity Center, where you can come and learn different pieces of Title IX and how it might impact you, and have some snacks. So those are kind of just a handful of the types of events that are offered in my area throughout the year.
Anybody else?
On the counseling services ends of things, at different points throughout the year, we have different wellness events. So we have pet therapy events where we partner with a local organization that brings therapy dogs to both the Somerdale and the Lancaster campuses. We have chair massage events where our masseuse actually sets up shop like in ATEC, and folk are able to kind of access that for free. We do different things throughout the year, kind of to correspond with other populations on the campus. So sometimes we've partnered with our veterans, Armed Forces Association. We've partnered with a couple of different clubs. I see the question that just popped up into the chat about LGBT community. So June is Pride Month. So we're moving our standing events virtual, so stay tuned to the CPC app because there's going to be something on there in a couple of weeks. I am hoping that we're going to be able to host our second annual drag show in the fall, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We had our first annual one last summer, and it went over really well, so I'm really hoping that we're able to kind of replicate that soon. So there's that piece of it. So yeah, and counseling services, we also pop into classes, especially your CPC Foundations class, which is kind of like what onboards you. It's one of the first classes that you usually take, and it kind of onboards you to kind of college life. So we pop in with those faculty as well. And some of you have actually been to the other event that my staff member John does called Phonics Friday. We've moved that via Zoom, and he said that a couple of new students have been clicking into it. So that's something that you all are welcome to do, where he kind of explores a different word and how it has cultural implications. When we do the event on campus, you get a free lunch out of it, but while we're doing it through Zoom, you have to supply your own lunch.
So we mostly do smaller things in the advising center. So we like to do some relatively personal sessions so that we can have a small group of students to learn about one particular topic. So we pick topics based on things that we've heard from students that would be beneficial to them. So things like time management, school life or work-school life balance. So different things like that we think can support you as a student. And then we do hold an annual event that we call the Adulting Fair. So the Adulting Fair focuses on some stuff outside of the normal realm of advising, and just it's just a fun way to talk about some of the real skills that you need as a college student, and then after your life as a college student. So I'm blanking on some of the things that we covered right now, but we did like meal planning on a budget, and we had a laundry sorting race, so just some fun stuff, and obviously there's free food because that's really the key for any good event.
All right, so there was a question that just popped in with, I'm a volunteer firefighter now. I saw that there was a firehouse not far from campus. Is there anything that could prevent me from applying there?
There's nothing that would prevent you from applying there. We've actually had a number of students throughout the years who have served at that fire company. They're very receptive to students being involved. So yeah, absolutely could apply there.
Can I get a job on campus?
Yeah, so there's, if you qualify for work study, there's a number of work study positions across campus in various departments. But there's also a number of departments that hire student workers even outside of the work study program. So yes, absolutely, you can look for employment on campus.
Our tutoring, the Learning Center hires tutors from the student body, and some of them qualify for work study, some don't. But they obviously need to be qualified academically in order to tutor others.
Megan, one of the questions was, do you do online tutoring or is it all in person?
We definitely do online. That's the only way we're functioning right now, but we already had it set up so that it's been a pretty smooth transition during the pandemic. So just like you're logged into Zoom right now, we have a software that's similar, and students log in for video chat. We can share screens. So we had a student in just 20 minutes ago who was pulling up a screen to show their Word document and go over any corrections they needed to make. We've got whiteboards, virtual whiteboards that we can write on them. I've seen some tutors do really fancy things to help students learn math on the virtual whiteboard. So we've got ways to help students even if we can't actually see them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Counseling Services is doing a similar thing using a different platform. So we are doing all of our sessions virtually now, either through the phone or through a platform like this. And then when we transition back to campus, my goal is that we're going to continue to offer that for everybody as well.
We're here to support all of our students as well. So obviously we're available virtually right now, but we're always here to support our students who it works better for them or their schedules to connect with an advisor via phone. You know, we can just talk via email. Again, we can use a video chat platform like this to connect with our students. So whatever works best for you.
Okay. Megan, can you talk a little bit about the math boot camp as well that you have set up?
So our math students are required to take a remedial algebra class unless they can test out of it. And there's an online placement test that allows them to test out of the remedial math class. If they want to prepare for that placement test, we have a math boot camp. So this would be for students who feel pretty confident but just need a refresher. It goes through some of the basic topics. I've seen students complete it in just a couple hours. It's all online, it's all self-paced, it's not graded. And they take some quizzes. If they don't do well in the quizzes, they watch some tutorial videos to help them review, and then they retake quizzes. And I've seen significant gains in placement test scores after students complete the math boot camp. So it is a free, completely self-paced course that I can register students for. So if they have questions about it, they are welcome to send questions to learningcenter@centralpenn.edu or really ask anybody on campus because they'll be able to direct the student to me also.
Okay. There was a question that popped up about, are there any sports clubs? I know this isn't technically what you guys do, but I don't know if you want to answer that or wait till the next session.
I will say that I know, and I don't know all of them, so certainly Adrian and Casey in your next session will be able to answer that better. But we do have students that plan sport events, so we'll have students that put together a flag football league every year, and students that will maybe do 3-on-3 basketball tournaments that they will plan. So there's certainly opportunities to be involved athletically, even if you're not playing on one of our varsity teams.
Okay, great. Does anybody else have any questions for the student support staff? All right. Do you guys have anything else to add right now?
I can just put in, and this kind of ties back to the last question that we talked about, is oftentimes I will have students ask whether or not they will qualify for accommodations if they're an all online student. And the answer is absolutely, no matter what method you're using to take your classes. If you qualify for accommodations, you qualify for accommodations, and we'll make sure that you receive them.
And the other piece I'll throw in there is a lot of times I get students coming in saying things like, oh, I wish I would have done this like 3 weeks earlier. Central Penn time flows real fast. So we encourage people, like, ask for help the second you have like a feeling that something isn't going right, because like our ability to help you in like weeks 2 and 3 look real different than if it's like week 9 and 10. So just, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And because I'm part of the student alert process, so sometimes again, your faculty member may like recommend that we reach out to you. So please know that if you get like a random email from one of us or a phone call, it is not because you did anything wrong. It is not because you're in trouble. It is just because someone has identified that, hey, maybe like someone can use a little extra support, and that's all it is.
Caitlin, oh, sorry, go ahead. Caitlin, I had a question too for you. So somebody asked, what does it mean if I'm scheduled for an online class or it says blended?
So I'll start with blended first. So a blended class usually means that it meets 3 hours in person and then 1 hour online. So a class that is fully on ground, with the exception of medical labs, which often meet longer than regular classes, for most regular 3-credit classes, they meet 4 hours per week. So a blended class usually meets 3 hours per week in person, and that 4th hour is made up through some sort of online component. And that's going to depend on the professor, but it could be discussion boards, journals, some kind of small assignment. So it's going to look a little different for each class. So some classes are offered in a blended format because they're offered in the evening, and that just makes the class time a little more effective together if you're meeting for 3 hours rather than sitting through a 4-hour class, which would obviously be a little bit lengthy. And then some classes are offered in a blended format just because the faculty have found over the years that that is a more effective structure. So for example, a lot of our English classes, our writing intensive classes like College Composition 1 and 2 are offered in a blended format because our faculty found that students were performing better with having those slightly shorter class meeting times. So either 3 1-hour sessions and then, that 4th hour is online, or 2 1.5-hour sessions and then that 4th hour is online. They're finding that students were doing better. So a fully online class though is a fully online class. So if you have received your summer schedule and you're seeing that you have a fully online class on your schedule and that's not what you were looking for, please do reach out to us. It's possible that that was a mistake. It's possible that we just were dealing with some scheduling constraints. We were having trouble finding a 4th class for you. So we can take a look specifically if that's something that did happen to you. So just go ahead and email us if you'd like. You probably received an email from somebody on my team or a registrar, so you can reply to that email, or you can just email advisingcenter@centralpenn.edu and we can take a look at your schedule if you do have any concerns.
Also earlier today, one of the summer students asked in the chat about, they just got their schedule and they were wondering when the professors were going to be assigned to them.
So that is kind of a gradual process. It doesn't all happen at once. Faculty should probably start in the process of getting assigned in the system here in the next week or 2, but it usually takes a couple of weeks for all of that to be rolled out. So I would just say check back in. You should start seeing more information on that soon, but don't be surprised if you log in a week and you see one professor assigned and a couple that still aren't assigned, that sometimes that process just takes a little while to roll out through every department.
All right, guys, I think that's all the questions I had for your team.